Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave Podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network, and we are here to discuss the highly anticipated A24 drama. It is The Smashing Machine, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Emily Blunt. It is directed by Benny Safdie. I'm going to be one of your hosts for this episode. My name is Darian Vinny. I am joined by Vinny Albano.
Hello.
Excited to talk about this one. I saw this back at TIFF about a month now since I saw this movie. It was the most anticipated movie for me going into TIFF because of my background with pro wrestling and MMA and Dwayne Johnson, and obviously being a huge fan of Benny Safdie. So I lined up for this movie an hour and 10 minutes before I had to go into the theater. So I was really excited to see. It was a full theater, and I was a little surprised with the muted reaction that it had because we had been talking in the group chat before the movie came out, was playing the festivals. It had only done Venice, but it won the Golden Lion, and Benny Safdie won Best Director. So it was one of those situations and one of those movies that I felt even more excited by the time I went to go see it. And I enjoyed this movie. I didn't love it as I was hoping that I was going to, but I did really thoroughly enjoy it for a lot of reasons that we'll obviously dive into as we get further along in the discussion. But Vinny, I've had a chance to sit on this movie now for a month. I really tried to see it again before we did the recording. I didn't have a chance to, but I'm hoping to go at some point this week after we record to go see it a second time, because I do want to see it again. But for you, what are your initial thoughts and what's your initial reaction to seeing the movie a couple days after you saw it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed The Smashing Machine. On the contrary, but also similar to you, I come from a background where I was never really into... I'm not really into UFC or wrestling or any of the sort where I follow the sports, just because I just don't follow sports like that. But if I were to choose a favorite sport of mine, it would be combat sports. Like, I love watching and also doing mixed martial arts. So I was excited going into this knowing of Mark Kerr. And now sitting on this film for about a day, I enjoyed it. But I can't lie, I'm still thought I would enjoy it more. I was expecting more out of this that it didn't provide.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for me is that I wanted more of a visceral and emotional connection.
Yeah,
coming out of the movie. And there were moments that I still think, I do believe that the narrative that was kind of over this movie, like the shadow that unfortunately the movie couldn't get away from, was that aspect of like, The Rock's doing an A24 movie, and that's a big narrative. It's a big storyline coming into it, because the unfortunate reality is that people don't give Dwayne Johnson his flowers for certain performances he had done, because so much of what he does is based in the entertainment industry, rather than like having kind of more of an arts background, right? He comes from the world of sports entertainment. He had a big personality in professional wrestling and WWE since the 90s. And he kind of was just such a big, electrifying personality that he went from that and he kind of got shoehorned into movies. Now, I grew up on a lot of his action fare, like even stuff, I'm sure you probably haven't seen some of the smaller stuff he did when his career started, but things like The Rundown, things like Walking Tall, like these projects that are not as... I guess family fronted, because now so much of his career, especially post Moana, he's gone and done things like the Jumanji movies that have more of like it's for all audiences. He did Fast and Furious, which is obviously like one of the biggest franchises of all time. He did on top of Moana, which we just kind of talked about for a second. He's done Jungle Cruise with Disney, which actually led him to getting Emily Blunt on for this movie. So there was a lot to kind of supersede in terms of trying to have the payoff that this movie, I guess, was trying to... I don't even know if it was the movie was trying to promise it, but it was just what it came with, right? What the narrative was. Yeah. But I feel confident in saying, after seeing this, I think that Dwayne Johnson did a really good job in his performance as Mark Kerr. I think that you see, you see a bit of vulnerability from him that you don't typically see from him. We had talked off camera a little bit yesterday, but we wanted to save a lot of the conversation for this, where there's specific moments that have to do with drug abuse that I think that we haven't seen from him ever. Actually, there is another performance that he does it, but it's a very different direction. Have you ever seen Pain and Gain?
No, but I know of it. The one with Mark Wahlberg
Yes, and Anthony Mackie, Michael Bay.
Yeah.
That is a very drug-fueled, dark comedy. And it's, again, I think that it's one of The Rock's other great performances that is underseen because it's a Michael Bay movie and things like that. But I was thoroughly impressed with his work in this movie, and Emily Blunt as well. And I know you were particularly impressed with Emily, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, early thoughts. Again, no spoilers until we jump into the spoiler section of the pod. But just their performances and going into that narrative, right? Like, what was your anticipation surrounding that narrative of, like, not only is this The Rock trying to do something that was more artistic, but it's an A24 backed project, and it's a project with Benny Safdie, who we've seen maybe a career best performance out of Adam Sandler before this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm impressed by what he does here. Totally impressed. I think he deserves his flowers. Like you mentioned, the scenes that depict drug abuse are perfect because it's not over exaggerated. It's just really grounded and really real, which is so crazy to see from a performer like Dwayne. Now, I also haven't seen Dwayne Johnson's other dramatic stuff. My mom's a big fan of Ballers, the TV show, and supposedly, according to her, he does a great job in that. So I haven't seen his other dramatic stuff. So based on what I have seen, this blows all his roles out of just, it's crazy. It's great. I will say, like I said, he deserves his flowers yet again. Emily Blunt is just such a good performer. And the reason why I'm so impressed by her in this film is because I watch Emily Blunt in every film, and she's so different. And in this, there's the accent and she does so much with so little. Yeah. Because a lot of her character is just the romantic wife that is trying to deal with all of this. Not to say that her character is lacking, but she can definitely fall into a just common archetype. And I still think she outperforms Dwayne in a lot of these scenes. I think of just the little mannerisms. There's a scene where they're at the fair and she's eating a funnel cake, and the little, like, this to the side of her lips, and she's speaking like this with her hands, and the accent and the walk with that, and the dramatic scenes where she's breaking down. I can't get over. She's also one of my favorite actresses, so maybe I'm a little biased here, but I'm just so impressed by her in this film. Like, I think of her in A Quiet Place, which is a very different movie, but she also plays, she plays a mother in that, where she doesn't play a mother in this, but there's a femininity in both those roles, right? There's in A Quiet Place, she has this motherly femininity, and this, she has a young adult type of femininity, and yet it's so different, and it's such a different approach as an actress. I'm incredibly impressed by her.
I think that the performances are obviously the performances are so much of this movie, and it really is a three-hander in terms of it being Dwayne and Emily and then Benny as the director, because so much of this is a very stylized choice of filmmaking, where this is not a typical sports biopic, right? This is not something where you're getting the moments. Like, I think there haven't been a lot of MMA movies, so I can't use, like, Warriors is the best example, but a lot of people probably haven't seen it. But, like, things like Rocky and, like, Creed, like, there's these elevated moments of drama, and there's great choreographed fight scenes that happen, and they look great, but they do feel not as authentic. To where I think that what Benny decides to do here in this movie, the first film that he solo directs without his brother Josh, he made a very interesting choice in terms of making it feel like you're watching a documentary about Mark and his wife, or his girlfriend at the time. Is it Beth? I believe the character's name is Beth. I could double check.
Not entirely sure.
Let me see. It's Dawn. I'm sorry. It's Dawn.
Yes.
And so Dawn and Mark, like, you're seeing, you feel like a fly on the wall. Like, one of the things in particular, before we get into the spoilers, like there's a home that they live in, that Mark and Dawn live in, and there's a lot of interiors that happen throughout the film. And instead of shooting that just on a soundstage with just like walls that you could put up and then you could take them down, Benny had them build a house, the house, from scratch on the soundstage, to where he would manipulate it where the camera you wouldn't see the camera. It felt so lived in for Dwayne and Emily in their performances that there were times where literally you couldn't see the camera. You see it also a lot in the scenes that are at the combat sports events, the pride events. You see that there are shots being taken from like the 200 sections of the rafters that are just zoomed in, and you're seeing the grain and all that. And I really appreciate the stylized aspect of that. And that has nothing to do with the story before we get into the spoilers, obviously. So for you, you're big into cinematography. You're a DP yourself. For you, with the approach with the camera and the direction, what did you think about the way that Benny decided to tackle this story?
You know, I think it is one of the most promising parts of this film. I also think it complements the story. Like the visual aesthetic, all of the cinematography, and the choice of direction to the visual aesthetic complements the story so well. However, and I'll get to this, right? I think I'm going to be kind of all over the place with this answer. But before I answer your question, my biggest thing that I wish from this film, right? Like I said at the beginning, my broad thoughts was that I almost expected more. And Mark Kerr doesn't really have a grandiose type of story. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Because they do what they can with what they have. So they focus on more of a very intimate, personal story rather than like something like, you know, a recent biopic like the Bob Dylan film, right, with Chalamet. So it's intimate, it's grounded, and that approach to the visual aspect and the cinematography complements that perfectly because of this documentary type feel. Shooting on film and VHS were then grounded within the 90s, and it's like we're living in that period of time with them, and being that fly on the wall, being far away from the actors at all times, and like as if we're peeking around these corners, again makes it feel so much more intimate, and it complements that intimate storytelling, that closeted story rather than something grandiose. Then again, I can't lie, I come out of this still expecting more because of that, but it is, to answer your question, cinematography is the most promising aspect. There are moments where sometimes, maybe I'm looking a little too deep into this, sometimes with the choice of shooting on film and stuff, they light the scene in a way that's very modern. It's, you know, these very, very, very strong key lights shooting through windows, and it comes off a little too modern at times. Especially when you're contrasting that with trying to shoot on more analog stuff, right? And you're not shooting on digital. No one else would notice that. It's really just like a few shots here and there, and I have that cinematographer eye. So I kind of noticed where it's like, that's like a weird lighting setup for something that's supposed to be so grounded within the 90s, especially shooting on a film medium. But it's really not that big of a complaint. Short answer is it was great.
You enjoyed it. You enjoyed the directorial style and the visual style. Yeah, so I will say at this point, we're probably going to start to jump into the spoilers. So if you haven't seen this movie, it's been out now for a few days. If you guys haven't had a chance to see The Smashing Machine, we recommend seeing it. Check it out in the theater while you guys can still catch it. It is a really good movie. It's still one that I would recommend seeing in the theater if you guys can. But at this point, we're going to start talking spoilers. So if you guys haven't had a chance to see the movie, just pause this, go see the film, and then return to the video when you guys are done seeing it. Yeah, man, there's something to this movie that it plays that juxtaposition that you're kind of talking about, because, and I think A Complete Unknown is a perfect example, because that's a film that was one of my absolute favorites of last year. It features a very different lead performance. It features a very different subject than what we get here with Mark Kerr, who is this gentle giant, has always been referred to as that, has always been known as that. And I do agree with you that it's almost like, it's almost like asking the question, like, is he deserving of a film adaptation?
Yeah.
You know? Now, the other thing with this, who might not know this, I think we had talked about this a little bit before we started recording yesterday, but The Smashing Machine was originally a documentary about the life of Mark Kerr and Dawn a little bit. She's in the documentary, but it's really more about Mark and following his career up to this point in Pride, a little bit in the UFC, and kind of seeing where the unfortunate kind of trials and tribulations of drugs kind of get you to a different place. And what I do appreciate about this movie, though, is that it feels very observational, and it allows the viewer to, again, be someone that, like, I can't recall another scripted film where it feels so documentary. You know, like, it really, really feels like you are with these characters the whole entire time, and you're seeing even those moments that seem like they should be quiet moments, you know, and one in particular, outside of even the action, is these moments between Dawn and Mark. The chemistry between the two of them. There's something that was small, and I heard somebody else talk about this in the review, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. A very small scene in the movie, but when he comes outside, when he just first becomes clean, and Dawn is sitting outside having a drink by the pool, and he is cutting the cactus, and it's something to where you get this tension, this quiet tension of the fact that, like, the way she hands him the knife and the way he's holding the knife, and it's very, again, it feels observational. It's like, is this something that could take a very dark turn? Is this dark because of the insecurities that Mark has? Is this dark because Dawn also is suffering from the insecurities? And it's hard for me to explain exactly what it was, but it's like that POV of the camera. Like, you really, really, really feel like you are the camera for so much of the movie. And I'm curious for you, like, in those intimate scenes, like, take the action out of it for a second. In those scenes in particular, did you feel, because those are the moments where it's like, I almost wish we got more of that, because that's where I felt like we were starting to get to a deeper sense of who these characters were. You know, so how did you feel about those kind of moments throughout the movie?
I love them. I love them. And that's why I still have a very positive take on this film. Like, despite saying that I expected more, I still love those moments. I still literally got emotional at the moment when, we're in spoilers now, so when he first overdoses, and we don't see it on screen, but we see the aftermath. We see Emily Blunt's character Dawn, like, breaking down, and then the hospital scene. That whole sequence is probably the most emotionally attached I felt during the film. Which I almost wish I was more emotionally attached towards the later half rather than that particular part. But regardless, those moments are executed so flawlessly that I think Benny did such a great job. And then also, to add to that, like, that feeling that we both felt of, like, of how that quiet tension, he edited the film himself too.
Yes.
And so much of that is done in the edit. So I have to congratulate Benny for sculpting this so well and allowing that perspective through the edit.
Yeah, I think that Benny, I think that, and this is, I hope this doesn't come off wrong. I mean, this is his first solo directorial effort. His last two movies are two of my absolute favorite movies. One of all time, the other one being of the last 10, 15 years. And though I think this is his, quote, worst film that he's made, I still think it's a very good watch, and I did very much enjoy it. I think it almost might be his hardest movie to make. Because it is balancing that tone of, like, how do I make the audience feel for this guy that it doesn't seem like his life is all that bad? You know what I mean? Like, he's not taking too much damage in fights. He has this beautiful wife. I mean,
Yeah.
Emily Blunt is a fantastically beautiful woman.
Yeah.
So there's that part of it too, but it makes you. I just think it's very admirable what he's able to do with this, where he's doing so much of it, right? Like he's doing the directing, he's doing the editing, so much of the stylized choices were his decision. He talked in interviews about how he goes, the scariest part of this whole process was I had to ask Dwayne to bulk up. He goes, one of the largest people in the world. I had to say, I'm sorry, but you need to gain weight. Like you don't have the build that Mark had. Like you need to be fluffier. He's like, you need to be, and Dwayne knew exactly what he wanted. And I think the physicality in the performance is also something which we can get into. But for you, like, how do you feel about the fact that the movie shies away from cliches? Is that something that you enjoyed about it? Or is like, did you wish that there was more of a heightened element to it that would have made you feel more excited about the story and the film in general?
No, I like that it's so grounded. I like that it feels so documentary. It reminds me a lot of French New Wave. Reminds me a lot of Godard, you know, where it's like so just breaking, like you said, breaking cliches and you know, a lot. Who plays? I know he's a fighter in real life.
The one that plays Coleman?
Yes,
Ryan Bader.
Yeah, so even him, like having him in the film is so cool, and it feels so, you know, feels very French New Wave, which is really cool. I'm a fan of that. I'm personally a big fan of that.
Him and also Boss Rutan, who plays Boss in the film. He plays one of Kerr's trainers. They both do a really good job for people that don't have a lot of acting experience at all, and they're just better known as being fighters in their life. And one of my buddies, Christian, was talking about this on his review, but it's like, if you, and this is what I like sometimes, like with the Safdies, because the way they're able to craft this type of stuff. But like, if you look at a picture of Mark Coleman, Ryan Bader doesn't look anything like Mark Coleman. He doesn't sound anything like Mark Coleman, but that's not what it's about. It's about what he embodies as the character and the relationship that Coleman and Kerr have, that I also think comes across. And the hospital scene is one, if you want to talk about your reaction to it, like we both talked about it yesterday, and we're like, that, I think that might have been some of Dwayne's best acting, especially how he's sitting there and he's like, man, everything's all good, brother. Like we're good. And then the moment where like Coleman's like, no, man, like it's okay. Like you're okay to let me know what's going on. I know that's not the case. And how he just snaps into the breakdown, where even that, it doesn't feel like you talked about earlier on. It doesn't feel over dramatized. It feels like these are the real people. And that's what I respect so much about the performances from everybody, especially Emily. And I don't know if you had seen or anything, but Emily said when she watched the documentary for the first time that she came out of it being like, there needs to be more to Dawn's story. Like there's not enough here to know what she was thinking during this process. She's very much a part of it. And you see it in moments like when she's going to some of his fights and she just wants to be there as a support system. And Kerr's like you're fucking me up. Like you're getting me, like, I'm not, like, I don't need this right now. I'm getting ready for a fight. While he's obviously on drugs too, and he's dealing with this, and you see it when she's taking the picture. It's in the trailer. When she's taking the photo and the one tear kind of comes down. I mean, the performances to me, man, are really, like, they really are great. Like I was impressed with the way that the performances are. What did you feel about that hospital scene in general, and I guess the relationship between Kerr and Coleman in the movie too?
Yeah, that was again one of my favorite aspects. I 100% agree. That hospital scene, like I said, is probably the most emotionally attached sequence for me in the film. I thought it was really great. I think also, if we want to speak to a scene similar to Dwayne's ability to act alongside other actors, the freak out scene of when Dawn and Mark have their big, towards the end, their big
blowout.
Big blowout, yeah. So that scene, to me, I think of a movie like Revolutionary Road, where
great movie, great blow up scene,
right? Yeah, and it's super theatrical, though. Like, you know, still amazing acting, but it's a different type of acting in something like Revolutionary Road, because it's very theatrical. I mean, or not Theo, sorry, Leo is going crazy in that moment.
Yeah.
In this, what I liked is the ability and control that Dwayne as Mark has over his anger, and that kind of like you feel again that quiet tension of like, holy shit, is he about to implode right, or is he about to explode right now? And he's just like, you can feel the way he's portraying this character, how he's literally thinking in that moment of like, okay, no, I can't, shit, wait, and then he's pulling in and out of that anger and in such a grounded way that's not too theatrical, and that's what I really appreciated about that scene, similar to what I appreciate about the hospital scene. Obviously, and then also obviously once Emily Blunt attempts to commit suicide, he comes in and diffuses that situation without using anger. I just thought that whole play of emotions with both Emily, but specifically Dwayne, was really great.
Yeah,
really
I think it shows you like that, how you as a person can like boil to a point.
Yeah.
You know, like you see it in a few very small scenes throughout the film where when he finally does become sober, he's like, this is hard for me. Like, but it's also understanding how confusing it can be for someone like Dawn, like something as normal as like having Advil in the cabinet. And he's like, why do you have Advil around? Like, I'm struggling with my addiction. And she's like, well, I have it for when I have a headache. Like, it's not, I'm sorry you're dealing with this, but he's like, no, you're not thinking about what I'm thinking. And it's almost like there's that love that they have for one another, but so not being in line with who each person is, that I also appreciated about it. But I do think, going into some of the negatives about it, I do think that the unfortunate reality is that it's almost like there's not enough substance to require a movie of this size. Like, so half of the movie is fight sequences that are very well done. They feel like, again, they feel very authentic. I love that they all take place like in the ring, like you feel like you're in the ring with them. But there's a lot of scenes of like Mark just kind of wallowing around and saying hi to people and having these non-important really interactions. But I think part of what Benny was trying to do with that is to showcase that quiet but real nice side of Mark. Like, you see it, and it works in some scenes, like the one where he's about to go in. It's in the trailer too, when he's about to go in to get checked by the doctor. Yeah. And he talks to the kid. That I think works well. But then there's other scenes where it's just like, okay, like, why are we showing this? Yeah. So for you, what are some of the negatives that you came out of this movie with, where you were like, I wish they would have done this in a different way, or I don't understand necessarily why they decided to go in this direction?
That's the problem, is I can't properly articulate what I wish they would have done, because again, it's a double-edged sword. I like the intimacy of this film dealing with such an intimate story, but because it's so intimate and it's so small and it's such a small glimpse, it's only like 3-4 years that we're covering here.
Yeah.
You still wish for more at the end of it. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't feel like I'm not wishing for more. I understand that that's as much as we can tell. And I actually do respect and like the fact that it's intimately told. And I like that it's small. But then again, double-edged sword, which is contradicting myself, and I fully recognize that. Right? So it's like, I can't even point a finger onto why or what I would have liked to see differently in this, because I do like the approach of everything. There was nothing particularly that was like terrible to like
about it. Do you think part of it, I was thinking about this yesterday, and by the time we're recording this is actually the day after the world premiere of Marty Supreme, Josh Safdie's film, at the New York Film Festival. We're both huge Safdie brothers fans.
Oh, yeah.
I think almost everybody in the network is huge Safdie brothers fans. Uncle Jim's one of my favorite movies of all time. Good Time is one of my favorite movies of the last 15 years.
Yeah.
I feel like you feel similarly in terms of how much you love and appreciate those films.
Yeah, I like Good Time more than Uncut Gems.
Yeah, a lot of people do, but I just there's something about that Sandler performance, man. That just, oh my god. But with that, I feel like I haven't seen Marty Supreme, but hearing what I hear from that, I almost feel like with these two now separating, at least for the time being, with singular voices in cinema, what Benny really loves is to tackle that grounded, boots on the ground cinema verite approach to filmmaking.
Yes.
What Josh does well, based on what I'm hearing from Marty Supreme, is that spectacle is big for Josh. Tension, anxiety is big for Josh. Though this movie does have some serious emotional moments, you don't feel anxiety, really. You do feel it in the scene where she's about to commit suicide, or she wants to commit suicide. You feel it then because there's a gun that gets brought in play. And I do think even the choice of like Benny playing Springsteen's Jungleland throughout that whole entire scene, where you get the beginning all the way to the end of the song, that's like 7 minutes straight of just that song in the black background, it adds to the tension, right? He knows how to use music in a really interesting way in this film. But do you think that part of you coming out of it is like you were expecting a Safdie Brothers movie and instead you got, this is what Benny is about, and now we're going to see what Josh is about? Because that's, now that I've been removed from it, and especially now that I know the reaction from Josh's film, I feel like it's very similar to like the Coen brothers, right? Where the Coen brothers have now separated and they're doing different things very different, right? Like Ethan Coen is going more of that comedic route that people love in the Coen brothers films. And Joel is very serious with the tragedy of Macbeth. And when you mash those two things together, you get things like No Country for Old Men. You get things like Raising Arizona. You get things like The Big Lebowski. So I'm sorry, long-winded, but like for you, do you feel like part of that is that when you were expecting more, it could be that we're so accustomed to what we've seen in the last two efforts from them as brothers compared to what we get with Smashing Machine?
Honestly, no.
Okay.
Because I expected that this was going to be different. And going into this, I saw both trailers for Marty Supreme and The Smashing Machine. So my brain was able to disassociate of like, okay, these are two separate artists. Obviously, there's going to be some crossover because brothers and they collaborated in the last two films. But my brain was expecting an independent on this. Like I really wasn't, you know what I mean? I could make that distinction between the two of them, especially since, like you said, you watched Marty Supreme's trailer and the way it's shot on great telephoto lenses and a cinema camera. And it's like, it's like, whoa, this is a movie, right? Like this is a Hollywood production.
Yeah.
And then you see this trailer for Smashing Machine, and you're like, oh, it's like an indie film. This is artsy, right?
Yeah.
So I was able to make that distinction. So I wouldn't say that my expectations, I take that back. I rewind one sentence back. The one expectation I did have, though, is yes, because the Uncut Gems and Good Times is both stories are so unwinding, and they're so like building until the end where it's like, boom. That I think that's the one thing of why I thought this was going to be story-wise
in a similar vein.
And it's not, in a similar, or just more, because like it feels more of like a day in a life than this just overarching story, especially since going back actually to the previous question you said of like, what would you change? Honestly, if you would write this in a more structured, traditional Hollywood way, I would have set up that gun in like one of the first scenes, and she tries to commit suicide with it. Like, I would have just set it up. Like, it's just a little thing, but it just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So
interesting. Cause I actually appreciate that it does come out of nowhere from my perspective. Cause in that moment, I'm like, oh man, but I do, I understand what you're saying where you're having that tension and that anxiety bubble up for a 2-hour runtime before you get like the big payoff in something like Good Time or Uncut Gems, where in this, it kind of does come out of nowhere. So I can understand and respect that. I did like that it was a different kind of approach from what I've seen though. But regardless, I mean, there isn't really much else to talk about with this film. We've really covered a lot of it. I guess last thing before we go into scores, just the reality of where we're at in terms of the time of the year and it being at festivals. Do you think we can see some Academy Award nominations for this film? And what do you think that we could expect maybe happening for it?
Yeah, I don't think the Dwayne Johnson's gonna win anything.
Mm-hmm.
I could see them throwing a nom for him. I really want Emily Blunt to be nominated. The other contenders of the year, though, are so strong that I don't know if she's gonna win. Because we've had so many great performances this year. I could also see Benny getting director for this. I could a nom, probably not a win, but I could see him getting a nom for sure.
Yeah.
As much as I want them to nominate the cinematography, I feel like the Oscars doesn't lean towards indie artsy cinematography like this. I don't think it's gonna get a nom, unfortunately. But there might be a chance.
Yeah. I would agree. I think that Dwayne and Emily, I think, are both gonna get noms. I think Emily is almost a guarantee to get a nom.
Yeah.
Because she does so much with so little. I think it's just that the best lead actor category is very tough this year.
Oh yeah.
And I think that Dwayne will get in, but it's gonna be a tight race toward the end. He's gonna have to there's gonna have to be some manipulation. Like one of the things I actually saw today is Paul Mescal, who's in Hamnet, is gonna be like campaigned for supporting actor. So that takes him out of the race. So that helps Dwayne's chances, I think. So I can see them both getting nominated. I would love to see. The narrative I want is that I want Benny and Josh both to be nominated.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, on this day, October 7th of 2025, I'm going to say that I don't think Benny gets a nomination. And I do think Josh does.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Marty Supreme, but just based on what I'm hearing. But I hope they both get nominated. That would be a really cool just moment in general for the Academy Awards. But I can also maybe see an editing. I can see an editing nomination because I do think it is so crucial in this movie. It's a very different type of editing that they would award, similar to the cinematography. But I would hope that it would maybe get a nomination. But this is a movie. It's not a traditional biopic by any means. It's very observational. It's very meditative. And I'm still very happy that a project like this exists. And I'm happy that it's a film that Benny was sitting on for a while, and so was Dwayne. And to see that collaboration as well as A24 and Emily Blunt, it's still a really interesting and engrossing project. So with that being said, it's time for scores. Would you like me to go first?
Yeah, could you go first?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm between two. I typically am not the type. Well, I will go 0.5s, but I'm not going to do that for this one. Because I don't know if it has enough to get me there, but I still really did enjoy this movie. It's still up on my list. It's not even top 15 for me, but it's still a top 20 film of the year for me. It's still a really enjoyable movie. I'm excited to see it again in theaters. I will probably be getting it on Blu-ray just because I appreciate the story and just the filmmaking in general. But I'm going to give The Smashing Machine an 8 out of 10. That's where I lean right now.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very strong 8. I was between an 8 and an 8.5, but I think an 8 is a solid score for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a solid 8 as well. Actually,
Okay.
I don't see myself going any higher than that.
Yeah,
I think that it's a solid 8.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, guys, that has been our review and conversation for The Smashing Machine. If you guys had a chance to see this movie already, please comment your thoughts. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Also, your predictions for the Oscars, if this has any chance at any of those. We'd love to hear all of that and have a conversation with you guys below in the comments. Give this video a like if you guys can, and subscribe to us here at the Culture Rave Media Network. We have tons of other stuff on the channel for you guys, as well as on our social media. That stuff is below me. It's also in the YouTube description, but we're getting ready to wrap up our coverage of Peacemaker. We're covering Gen V. We have our review up for One Battle After Another. Vinny just did a review with Sean for Good Boy. We have Roofman coming up, my TIFF recap. There's a bunch of stuff for you guys to check out. So please, if you guys have a chance, check all that stuff out. Just signing off, I'm Darian Scalamoni.
And I'm Vinny Albano.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.